Financial with Christopher Calandra, Certified Financial Planner, is an innovative, comprehensive, informative, and cutting-edge podcast that discusses financial topics ranging from personal finance, economics, politics, and personal growth. Simply Financial will cover intriguing and thought-provoking questions so that the listener can simply increase their financial IQ.
Welcome to the Simply Financial podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Calandra. This is episode number 4 of season 4. On today's episode, I have actually the first of a two-part series. The first part is with Debby Cody, and then the second part, next episode, is going to be her husband, Gil Cody. So, Debby, you're with me, right? Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So, we were together recently, and we talked about a number of different things, and I had this idea to do this interview and publish it in February of 2020, which is Black History Month. And so I thought maybe we could start with your kind of younger days growing up. What kind of home did you grow up in? Was your family, would you describe it as a wealthy family, poor, middle class? Can you give us a little bit of an idea?
So I grew up in Washington, D.C., and I had 6 siblings, and we were a single-parent household. So by definition, we're middle class. We definitely weren't poor, and by no means were we wealthy, but we had what we needed and a little bit more.
So you had 6 siblings. I grew up with 3 of us, so I was one of 3. That sounds a little crazy for a single-parent household. Was it crazy?
It was crazy, but it was also fun. You learn to share, definitely learn to share, and not be so, territorial with what you have.
Did you also learn to fight with 6 siblings?
Yeah, you definitely learn to fight, fight fair.
In this family, you said that seems to be solidly middle class. What did you learn about money when you were young?
So what I learned about money is that, in a nutshell, you need it. You got to have money to get the things that you want. And like I said, we were by no means wealthy, so we were told no. That we couldn't have some things, not because they didn't, my mother didn't want us to have them, but we just couldn't afford things. 7 kids in a single-parent household. My grandparents helped out a lot financially with us, but you still have to, you got to have money. That's basically it.
I'm curious, Debby, how do you know that your grandparents helped out financially? Is that something that you knew at the time? As maybe a teenager, or is this something you learned about later on?
No, there was a time that we actually lived in the house with my grandparents.
Okay.
So it was a multi-generational household, So, as you get older, you can kind of put 2 and 2 together.
And I imagine that your mom was the head of the household. Is that right?
That is correct.
So other than your mom, who would you think influenced you the most about money if you think back on what you learned early on? Other than your mom, who would you identify as being influential in the money area?
Early on, I would say my grandparents, and then as I became a young adult, it was my mother's brother and his wife.
Okay, so that would be your uncle?
My uncle, exactly.
All right, very good. And so you had a career in the military, right, in the Army?
I did, 22-year retired Army veteran.
Thank you very much for your service. And what age were you when you joined the military?
I joined the military right out of high school, so I joined at 17, but actually went in at 18. They have what they call delayed entry. So I went in at 18, and 22 years later, I retired.
Very impressive. So your mother had to sign off on that program when you were a 17-year-old?
No, because I did not go in until I was 18.
Okay.
I didn't require a parental signature.
And with military service, a lot of times, not always, a lot of times that's something that families have a tradition in that regard. My family, candidly, does not. My dad was drafted during the Vietnam War era. He didn't serve in Vietnam, but rather Korea in the Army. He was drafted and he served his time, but I wouldn't say my family necessarily has a military tradition of serving. Do you come from that type of family?
I do not come from that type of family. For me, joining the military was, for lack of a better term, it was out of necessity. So I graduated from high school, but I did not prepare myself for college, not academically, but just all the things that you need to do to go to college, take all the tests and all that. So my goal was to get a job right out of high school. Unfortunately, in order to get a job other than in the fast food industry, everyone was saying you needed experience, but nobody wanted to hire you for that experience.
Yes.
So for me, joining the military was so that I could get, air quote, experience, so that when I did apply for jobs, I could say, yes, I do have experience.
So that's interesting. So it's fair to say when you joined, the idea of having a career in the military was not top of mind. It was more necessity to get some experience for what would conceivably come next. Is that a good way to describe it?
That is correct. I went into, in the military, I was in the finance corps, and my aspirations as a civilian were to be an accountant, with an actuary degree. So it was to go in, get the experience, get the money for college, the GI Bill, and then come out 4 years later and start my civilian goals in life.
Okay. So this isn't really what I had planned on asking you about. I'm just very curious. And as the host of the show, I could kind of do what I want. You know what I mean, Debbie? So when did you decide that it was going to be a career? Was it after the 4 years, or was it just something that kind of unfolded, every so many years, saying, okay, I'm going to re-up for my next stint? When did you ultimately decide that you'd make a career of it and do your 20 years making you eligible for pension, full pension?
So it kind of unfolded. When I first went in, I signed up for 4 years. That was all I had intended to do.
Yes.
But at the end of the 4 years, I was stationed in Europe. And at that time, it was, we didn't have all the computers and everything that we have now. So it was hard to find a job if you're in Europe. So I signed up for another tour.
Okay.
Then one thing led to another, and the next thing you know, I was at the 10-year point. When you're at 10 years, you only have to do 20 to retire. So anybody that does 10 years and doesn't retire, I don't know. So at that point, I just went ahead and decided that I'm going to retire. I'm going to just stay in and retire. I had still met the goal of getting my college degree. I got it before I got out of the military, using the GI Bill while I was in, and then going further while I was out, still using the GI Bill. So I met my goals that I intended to, and then threw in an extra one that, hindsight, they say it's 20/20 vision. It ended up being a really, really good thing that I did the 22 years, because it enabled us to be where we are today financially.
Very good. Good. Thank you for sharing. If we could switch gears slightly, I've been a financial planner my entire career, I think you know, and so that spans 27 years. And, this is my thing, right? I'm immersed in this. This is my area of expertise. It's an area that I do love. I'm still curious about it, Debbie, even today. Personal finance, money, investing, the psychology behind it, the emotion behind it, the math behind it. And it seems to me that the African American community, which I am not a part of, is underserved in terms of education and personal finance. And from our dealings and conversations, you have taken upon yourself to try and make sure that your family and people that are close to you are educated in the realm of personal finance, trying to give them a chance to have the success that you have and you and Gil have. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of this personal finance subject and the steps you've taken to help, for example, your children?
Sure. One of the things that we think is important is that you have to have a goal, and you have to start small. So the first thing you have to do is you have to start saving. But then once you amass a certain amount of money, I'm a big believer in going to the professionals. If you need something sewn, you go to a seamstress. If you need, you get where I'm going with this. So
absolutely, you need people to help you that are subject experts.
Everybody's not a subject matter expert. Everybody doesn't know about 401ks and CDs and this financial thing and that financial thing. So I believe that you should get the advice of somebody who knows, who's that's in their field. You've done it for 27 years. I was in finance, so I know how to count money. I know how to keep up with money. But as far as making that money work for me the best way, I feel like you go to the subject matter expert. So we try to make sure that our kids start early. We have a son that just graduated from college, and he has his first, as he calls it, adult job. And, unlike me, I didn't want him to have the same mindset that I had when I started out. Not that I was a big spender, but I didn't start saving right away. So I wanted him, while he doesn't have no family, just himself and the money that he makes to take care of himself, to make sure that he pays himself and he starts early so that he can be where we are or even further than we are when he gets to his golden years. And the same thing, we try to, pass that information on to people who may not have, they may have the money, but they don't have a financial planner. So that's our goal with how we saved and how we try to instill it and pass it on to other people.
Well, that's very well said. And a couple of things. Number one, I've had the pleasure of speaking to Isaiah recently. He's an impressive young man, so I bet that he does accomplish quite a bit in his life. He seems very, very sharp. And I teed up that question, Debbie, and I think maybe I should have made sure that we were kind of on the same page. Would you say that you agree with my opinion that the African American community is underserved and undereducated in the realm of personal finance? Now, I know, look, this is a big country. There's lots of different people from all different backgrounds, and the diversity is tremendous. But do you think that's a good general statement?
I would say that a generalization,
yes.
Not so much that they don't have access to it, but that they don't take advantage of the access to it. That, you have to have somebody behind you, as in Isaiah's case and our other children's cases, pushing you towards that goal. So it's out there, but unless you're introduced to it, so yes and no.
So is it fair to say that you would appreciate it if more members of the community took advantage of resources that were out there and made better use of resources and made better decisions to increase their wealth and win with money more consistently? Is that a good way to phrase it?
Yeah, there are plenty of programs out there that teach you how to be academically successful.